Good evening and welcome to the June 3rd meeting of the Board of Directors of the Ames Community School District. I'll entertain a motion for the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Perez, seconded by Benkin. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Director Rosser, will you please read the purpose statement?
The Ames Community School District commits to equity and access that empowers every individual to reach their full personal and educational potential.
Thank you very much. And I will read our statement regarding public comments, which follow each of our discussion items, as well as our public forum. Residents of the district, students attending the district, parents or guardians of students attending the district, and district staff members may address the board about any topic relevant to the district, whether on the current agenda or not. Those who wish to speak must sign up at the beginning of the meeting. Speaker participation is limited to 3 minutes once per item. The views and opinions of citizens addressing the board do not necessarily reflect those of the board, district administration, or staff. Speakers are to remember that Iowa law prohibits the board from discussing specific employees, students, or their performance. Student speakers will state their name and school. Others will state their name and address. And our first item tonight is the Story County Multi-Jurisdictional Local Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Thank you. I appreciate this opportunity to talk to you all about this plan that we are presenting to you today. First off, my name's Keith Morgan. I'm your Story County Emergency Management Coordinator. Myself and my deputy, Melissa Spencer, provide and work for a commission that is your Story County Emergency Management Commission. That commission is made up of a mayor from all of the communities within Story County, one representative from the Board of Supervisors, and the sheriff. So as you can see, it's designed to be an equal partnership amongst all of the different communities across Story County. What we do is we facilitate planning, preparedness, response, and recovery for emergencies and disasters. And we are interjurisdictional and interdisciplinary. As you can see by that makeup, our efforts are really focused on not providing emergency management for you all and all the different jurisdictions, but to provide emergency management with all of you and the different jurisdictions. We try and bring everybody together to share resources and to develop a common way of thinking when it comes to emergency management that is proactive and reaches out there and tries to reduce our risk in the first place. And also, if we should have a disaster, to be able to share our resources in the best, most efficient and effective manner to be able to take care of whatever that threat might be. So today what we are here to look at, and what I'm asking you to adopt, is the Story County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan update, a mere 500 pages of light reading for you all. What it is, it's actually a revision of the plan as it was adopted in 2014. The process works by having each of the different jurisdictions that are involved, and in this case, again, it was all the communities, Iowa State University, and all the school districts as a separate jurisdiction, looking at what risk do they face and trying to identify ways that they might reduce that risk in front of that risk hitting. That is by far the most cost-effective way, and it also is what we should be striving for, which is to protect our students, in your case, and your staff from the risks that are out there up front. It's better to mitigate the risk away and never have to respond, but if we do have to respond, also minimize our risk at that. So by doing that, we'll first off look at the strategies as adopted in the plan in 2014. You adopted 3 strategies, which is safe rooms in new and remodeled elementary school buildings. Secondly, you look to relocate the high school varsity basketball complex out of the floodplain, baseball. And thirdly, you look to enhance the entry vestibules within your schools.
I'm sorry, we're having trouble seeing the exhibit.
Okay.
I wonder if we can straighten it out and maybe zoom in a little bit. It
Sorry
seems
about
fuzzy.
that.
That could just be me, though. Can y'all see it? Is it fuzzy?
Yep.
It's fuzzy.
Okay.
Oh, that's
There you go.
Thank you.
Great technology.
I always have to check and see if it's just me. It wasn't just me today.
Thanks for pointing that out.
Thank you.
So you can see that those were your three strategies as developed in the process last time. And the way that the process works is that we look at what risks are out there. So we'll look at what risk you identified for your school district in the new plan. Let's see if I can get this a little bit more straight. There we go. And I'll have to move it over first off. The different risks that are out there, we look at everything. Dams, dam failure, animal plant disease. So you can see it's both for communities and it is for individual agencies. As I slide on over and try and line this up, I highlighted in yellow the three that you consider to be high hazards, which is hazardous materials, river flooding, and tornado and windstorm. So those are the areas that collectively that the Ames School District should be looking at. To try and mitigate those risks, the school district representatives came up with they considered the ones that were presented in 2014 to have been at least partially completed, and two new ones were added. The first one is to assure safe areas available at school facilities to provide personnel refuge or protection during severe weather events. That was actually a very good way to revise that original one on tornado safe rooms. It is much broader and it allows you to provide the level of safety that you need. A tornado safe room typically costs about $750,000 each, which is financially probably not achievable for any school district. But through adoption of this, you can look at your facilities and reduce the risk across each of these facilities utilizing what's there now. So it is taking you to the point where you do that cost-benefit analysis and make those structural and procedural changes to meet this requirement. The second one was focused on terrorism, and unfortunately that is something that's in the news regularly. But what you're looking to do is to stop that unauthorized intruder by making it into the building through some of the vestibule work that you have done, cameras, and additional barriers to compartmentalize how access to your school to allow you to keep that threat as far away from the students as possible. And it's looking at the 7 buildings that you have, or new installations in 7 buildings and upgrading to the 2 that you already have. And also to provide communication links to your rescue and response agencies, which is another very good action to allow them to be able to react to the threat and have real-time situational awareness on what is going on. So those are the 2 major actions that you have proposed in your hazard mitigation plan. But this is just the start with it. The plan itself has been sent on up through FEMA, and through your adoption today of this plan, it will make you eligible for hazard mitigation grants for the natural disasters and also the possibility of any other grants that are out there. What I encourage you to do is to regularly review your progress towards meeting these strategies and their implementations. As a matter of fact, as a part of the plan, there is an annual review of these, and it's a time for you to look at your progress and determine whether enough resources have been put towards these strategies that you have selected for adoption. As we were talking about, this is a 5-year revision, so we will probably start this process again in a mere 3 to 4 years. But a constant refresh in this ever-changing time is probably a very, very good idea. I'd like to say how I appreciate the interaction that I've had with your staff on this, that has worked together, attended meetings, and has, when needed, not hesitated to give me a call and ask me questions about it. So with that, I open it up to any questions you might have.
I have a question. So I guess I wasn't clear on the tornado room.
Yes,
So,
ma'am.
so when you say $750,000 to make, you mean like to make every classroom tornado-proof?
No, ma'am, that's to make one room within a facility meet the requirements that FEMA puts out there, which is able to withstand 250-mile-an-hour winds, and also to have backup communications and a lot of other requirements that are
And
with it.
If I heard you, so I was trying to understand what you were saying. You said that the district was going to be using kind of what it had available. So there won't be tornado-proof rooms under this plan. We're just telling the government we're going to be finding a room that will work. Did I understand that?
No, actually, the way that I interpret your strategy is that it allows you to look at options below a tornado-safe room. And this is important because sometimes when you're dealing with FEMA, if you said you were going to do a tornado-safe room, that's what then you have to go back and redo a strategy if it isn't a tornado-safe room. So this is, in my mind, a good strategy. So, for instance, if you have a facility that is not even, it's a sports facility or something like that, you can't afford to build a tornado-safe room for each of those, but through this strategy, you could request grant funding to be able to strengthen a structure that is out there.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. That was helpful.
In your comments, terrorism was a topic you brought up, and I agree that's probably is our highest risk. And so monitoring activity in our buildings, I think, is important in how we should look going forward. Do you know, are there grants available for trying to help upgrade our technology, specifically more video cameras in areas of our building?
There, at times, are Homeland Security grants that may be available for that. I'll be completely honest that as we get further away from 9/11, those grants are getting harder and harder to come by. And
Okay.
so when a grant does become available, they tend to look at using those funds that will create a larger impact than just within one school.
Okay. Because there'd be some ancillary benefits besides just that part of the mitigation that you referenced as far as operationally, some discipline, other bullying and stuff that we would take advantage of, cameras, I think, in more places. But I was hopeful maybe there was more grants available, but sounds like doubtful.
When we do get grant opportunities, we try and forward them out to all the agencies as possible. It is good to have something like this within a document like this, so when a grant project does come along, it demonstrates that you have been thinking about this and that you do make it a priority. So it's that one more bit of documentation that you can add into whatever grant application you put in to strengthen your request.
Thank you.
So by adopting the resolution that you've attached to the materials later on at our next meeting, right? That'll allow us to, whenever grants come available, to possibly, whether it's for technology or improving our vestibules for those security reasons, correct?
It makes you eligible for Homeland Security hazard mitigation grants, which there are two categories of. Those tend to be focused on what we would call a Stafford Act event, which are natural disasters that are out there. So it would be more likely that you would get funds to strengthen a building for severe weather than you would for the terrorism. But without adopting this and without participation, you would have been completely ineligible for those hazard mitigation grants.
Okay, great.
You had referenced on the action related to the severe weather, the case of extreme heat, which oftentimes, if I'm right, extreme heat and the mitigation for that, you would do multi-jurisdictionally because, for example, a school might serve as a cooling area, or vice versa. For a winter event, it might be a heating area for community members. Is that taken into account in this plan to work multi-jurisdictionally where the school is helping to support services other jurisdictions need, or was I misinterpreting that area of it?
When we work with the communities to develop those kinds of plans, we look at all the resources that are available. And not that the school districts wouldn't be willing to assist us at those times, we tend to recognize that we want schools to continue. to operate. So whereas a gym looks like a great place to put a shelter, if school is in session, then it will disrupt activity. So we tend to start looking at other places first, but if we needed to, that's when we would begin the dialogue. And by we, I would say we would work with the community affected, in this case Ames, to have that dialogue with the school district.
Any other questions for Keith? Thank you very much for the information, for your partnership, your willingness to come and help us understand all of this information. You do it every day, but it's very helpful to have you highlight for us the important things that are important for the district. So thank you very much.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk with everybody.
And this will come back as an action item at our next meeting, the resolution. Is there any comments from the public on the presentation? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and go on to the emergency operations plan. Eric, Carl, and Jerry.
Well, our document is significantly shorter than the one that was just shown. Tonight's presentation is to give you guys an update on where we are writing our emergency operations plan. This document is a draft document. We've actually worked with Keith, giving us some feedback as well as giving us some input on what we needed to include and some changes that need to be made. This actually came from a legislative resolution to have districts update their emergency operations plan to be inclusive as we can with events. Most specifically, active shooter was the most recent addition. This is actually started from a template that was given to us at a workshop back in the fall. And we have since tried to add, remove, move around, update to make it fit what our district's plan is going to be. This document is a little bit vague because the plan is to have this be a public-facing plan. We've met with Superintendent Reisner, and as we've talked through how this is going to be, we wanted this document available to the public. So it's not going to have specifics in this case of this event, then we will do this. That sort of documentation, we're going to work with the principals over the summer to put together waterfall charts available in classrooms, as well as possibly through some electronic means. So in the case of an event, everybody can be communicated with on what we needed to do. The biggest thing that we've learned as we've gone through this process is that we can't possibly come up with or comprehend every possible way that something terrible could happen to one of our schools. So we need to try to come up with more universal approaches. How do we connect with the right people? How do we get the right information to the right people? And that's what this document is really about. It's about how our administration is going to coalesce with Story County, city, state, and then federal management services, depending on the event that we have to deal with. There are some names in here that need to be yet filled out. There's some classes that we're going to say administrators are going to take, some classes that will bring us up to speed on what we need to know. Something as simple as vocabulary. There are a lot of words that get thrown around in FEMA documentation that Keith is well versed in, our police chief and fire chief is well versed in. So we need to make sure that Jenny and Chris and Carl and Jerry and Eric and our principals, they know if when we say this word, that's what this means. As part of this will be a little bit altered communications plan, and I'll let Eric talk about that a little bit. But we do need to have this document approved by the end of June. And we'll be meeting with all of the individuals on the introductory page, hopefully the 10th, to get some final feedback from Ames PD, Ames Fire, as well as the county response folks to weigh in on our plans. But this is a draft document, a document that really should be evaluated and approved annually from here on out. In fact, it says right in there, if there are any significant changes, we need to have it come back to be reapproved again, so that you guys are aware and our community is aware of what our response will be in the case of an emergency. Did I leave anything out? Okay. What questions do you have for us?
Thanks, Carl, for the information. I appreciate the detail. And again, you said this is a draft. So I guess how do you balance, by having at the very end of the document, it talks about our bell times. And so I'm trying to think of how do you balance information to the public, since it's a public document, because I think that would be helpful if I was wanting to do something. So how do you kind of go through balancing those difficult choices?
You guys want to take it or you want me to? Gee, I don't need to hold the mic the whole time. One of the things is we have conversations with administration, we have conversations with Jenny, and kind of talk through with emergency staff what would and wouldn't be. Something like a floor plan with escape routes is not something that we want to put into a document. But something like a bell schedule, that's already on our website to know when kids pass. We've had so many parents and students ask, like, when is fourth period? I mean, it's even a struggle for me as I work through the school, because we have to serve so many buildings. We'll have a teacher say, come by fourth period. Like, I don't know what fourth period means at all. Can you tell me an actual time? So it's a matter of conversation to try to lean to the side of maybe being a little overprotective of information, but ultimately it's not just Jerry or Eric or Carl said it was a good idea to put it there.
Sure. I just appreciate your balancing ease of use with the risk. So thank you.
Yeah. And actually, Luke, I'm glad you brought that up. I've had some parents over the course of the past couple of years asking things like, oh, well, can you let parents know, where the rally points are, or, details like that. And obviously, like you said, we're not going to be able to get that detail, because that would put our students, staff, and first responders at risk if people knew what that type of information was. So I'm sure you will balance well the need to know with some generalities. And people, I think, are going to understand with this type of a document that we can't be as transparent as we are with other things, because it's really protecting our students and our staff.
I will say that one of the first decisions that we did make was deciding whether this document should be public, or whether we would prefer to have it be an internal document, because we do have the option of you guys taking a look at it under closed session. And as we started going through the template and looking at the information, we made that determination right away. But then, of course, that dictated our decision moving forward as well. So, those you brought up, reunification points, that is something that we will have access to, our building administrators will have access to, and how to proceed. But it's not something that we're going to have in here. So.
Exactly, definitely. And then the other thing I wanted to point out, that it really is a living document, because I don't think anybody expected you guys this year to get it done by the end of June and have it complete. Because every school district, we're all going to be throughout the country learning from each other from month to month what works best. First responders learn what works best, or what things work better as they go through these procedures, whether it's a first, an intruder situation, or it's a weather-related situation. We're always learning. So it really should be, I hope, part of our policy that it is looked at every year by someone and brought back to a board for an annual check-in, because it really is important. It shouldn't be something that we put on the shelf. To be honest, being a former teacher, I've seen in the past school districts did do that. They'd pass it, put it in the teacher's classroom, and it really collected dust in that 3-ring binder for a long time without anybody really looking at it. But, and unfortunately in this day and age, I think it's something we have to revisit every year.
The section that talks about the response teams, the part with the student release team, can you speak about the it says check-in student emergency cards for authorized releases. They don't have that now? Can you speak about that? Is that something that we will do?
Or is it the emergency card with their contact info?
And it would more than likely come from Infinite Campus as opposed to an individualized card.
So they won't carry it. So we're expecting someone to have a computer and just like,
All of our staff members in the district have a device assigned to them.
right, yes.
And so they can get into campus to help with reunification. There are also some other tools that we may consider down the road that could maybe make that a little bit easier for checking in the case of emergency and reunification. So it's not, I can check in any student that shows up to me at this location, not just the kids that are assigned to me.
That's what I was
Yeah.
kind of hinting to
Yeah.
her. Yeah,
Yeah.
if we could make it perhaps not even, I don't know how we do this, perhaps not so technology dependent. I don't know how we do that, because what if that's not part of, like, what if something happens and we don't have access to computers or something? So I don't know, things like that. I was wondering if because the students don't have anything right now, right? They have their student ID, but there's no like emergency contact in it.
Not on their IDs at this time, no. It's only in the student information system.
Okay, thank you.
I was happy to see you guys adopting NIMS. The ICS will definitely help with the unified command basically when fire or EMS shows up on site. Hopefully it'll help with the transition. One question I had thinking through it is, when that EMS command structure shows up on site, the incident team you have in there for the organization effectively becomes the contact that the liaison officer for the incident command is going to be using as a resource. And one thing I saw that was kind of missing there, and just a suggestion, seems like having some sort of student services contact there would be key, because when you get into reunification or helping with kids in trauma, there wasn't anybody that jumped out as me as like, who is the police chief or whoever assumes command going to reach out to help with student needs. Otherwise, aside from that, I think the plan looks like a great way to transition. I love the idea of having teachers understanding this as like a way to transition the command as more people arrive on site. So I look forward to seeing where you go with it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I know this came from a legislative resolution, but it's timely, it's important. We know everyone across the state's doing it, but I think it's really important work. So thank you for working through it, and thank you for your support on it, Keith. So.
Thank you.
Any comments from the public on the emergency operations plan? And it sounds like it will come back to us at our next meeting, as it does need approval by us by the end of June. So that will be the 17th meeting. Thank you. Policies for discussion. Anything you want to highlight?
So these were the next round of policies up for review on the ongoing policy review. Many of these are fairly straightforward as they deal with policies that are either mandatory or ones that we have handled in the past. I know there were a number of policies reviewed this time that I'll comment that we did pull for further review because we wanted to make sure Jenny and the new executive directors have time to review those, as they have more to do with how curriculum will be delivered to students and effectively setting a vision for education within the district. And we want to make sure those weren't generic, but were more personal to Ames.
I think there is one worth highlighting from my perspective. It's, I think, the very last one, 606.4, I think it's the number. My screen won't scroll. And it is the policy about student production of materials and services. And I think as we require more of our students, we ask more of them creatively. We focus on STEM and entrepreneurship and really asking our students to create, that we understand that the policy of our district is that anything created with district property belongs to the district. So if we had a student who created some fantastic software, we would own it, not the student. Versus if the student created something with their property or their parents' money. It would belong to the student, and I think it's meaningful just that we're aware as we move forward and ask more of our students and our families.
Thank you for highlighting that one. Any questions about these policies?
I had one question and one comment. I guess my first question is on the school day, 601.2. What's the purpose of defining the school day? Like, how is that going to be utilized?
Meaning, I think what you're asking, and hopefully I've got this right, and you can jump in, Ellen and Monique as well, but we're required, this is one of the policies that we're required to have, and it's basically the instructional hours component. But we do have another policy that lays out the 1080 versus days. So this is really this is kind of the broader piece.
Okay.
One of the things, though, I'm glad you brought this up, because one of the things that at the bottom that it does say is it's the responsibility of the superintendent to inform the board annually of the length of the school day. And so I think that's important, and probably why in the past the actual times were put in the policy. But I think as we discuss this as a policy group, that doesn't give a lot of flexibility unless we come back and readjust those. So this would become part of the administrative rules section, the length of the school day, but I still would bring it to you annually for approval.
Great. And then my next comment, I guess, is the school calendar. And so I really appreciative and supportive of us going to hours. This legislature allowed us to do. I think we're at 11, whatever, some odd change. But the thing that I guess to highlight is what the mechanism will be when we think we've gone too long. And so, in the past, we've just taken the approach of, well, we're good enough, and we just kind of goes on.
Right.
And so I guess I'd like the board to consider going forward, how do we help Jenny, I guess, say, okay, we should make some days up, because it just feels like we're kind of letting
I
stuff
think
go.
that's an important piece, and that could be done in the administrative rules as well, that as a rule of thumb, once we've missed 4 days or 5 days, whatever that is. So I think that would be a great thing to have a discussion about, maybe in like a work session,
Okay.
on what that looks like. And Luke, the other thing that in that policy that it talks about is the board shall hold a public hearing on any proposed school calendar prior to adopting the school calendar. And so I think that's something that that we weren't aware of or hasn't been done in the past. So we'll make sure that that happens moving forward.
Okay, thank you.
I like that.
And hopefully we don't have as many snow days next year.
We're not going to, I'm sure of it.
Any other questions or comments on the policies that have been presented? Seeing none, any comments from the public? Great, we will go ahead and move on to board committee update. Anything that you would like to highlight? I know the technology committee has a report in there. Obviously, the policy committee met, but their update was in a separate discussion item. Anything, any committees that you'd like to highlight? Any questions? Seeing none. Any comments from the public? All right, we'll go ahead and move to the public forum, which we do not have anyone signed up, so I will entertain a motion on consent items.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second?
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Beerbaum.
Consent items, minutes from the meeting held May 20th, 2019, personnel report, open enrollment applications, gifts to the district, including cash donation from J.C. Penney Cyber Grant, and Linda Severson, music equipment.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Our first action item is the award of bid for food service. I'll entertain a motion.
I move the board award the food service bid to Chartwell's School Dining Services for food service management for the 2019-20 school year.
Second?
Moved by Perez, seconded by Deerdorf. Discussion. Anything you want to highlight for us, Chris, maybe before people have any questions?
I would remind the board that the National Lunch and Breakfast Program is a federal program. When you are not in-house for food service and you are outsourced, you are required at a minimum to formally rebid it every 5 years. Each year, it is a one-year contract. You are allowed up to 4 one-year renewals, but that doesn't, it's a minimum that it has to be rebid every 5 years. So the RFP process is very scripted. The state of Iowa gives you the RFP and tells you what you can and can't change, and if you change one word, you have to get their permission to do so. We received it around the 1st of February, and by the time we got all the information that goes in it, it's about this thick, so, and it requires a lot of financial data that has to go out to the potential bidders. We got it out towards the end of March, which is the guidelines that the state said. They require a 6-week return period, and if you're having a bid or a mandatory bid meeting halfway between that. I couldn't get the committee together on a timely basis to make the cutoff for the last board meeting. That's why it didn't make it to the end of the May. End of school year is just very busy for everybody, so I had a little trouble getting them together. We did have 3 companies that did submit bids. Chartwells and Tahair were reviewed by the committee. We had another one, Lunchtime Solutions, which we did not review. We have a cost reimbursable RFP, which means that whatever the costs are that the food service management company has, we reimburse them for that. And then the way the company makes the profit is there is you can determine whether it is a per meal equivalent fee, which is what we do. So the thought there is that the more that they increase marketing and increase participation, the more fees they will generate, as opposed to a flat fee, which is just an amount per month or an amount per year, regardless of how they perform. The other company proposed both a flat fee and a per meal equivalent fee, and the RFP specifically said that if they proposed a fee that was not one that we would accept, that their response would be non-responsive. So I consulted with the Department of Education, and we did not review them. Chartwells is leaving their per meal equivalent fee the same, and they're projecting a profit to the fund of $135,000. And they scored 96.2 out of 100 points compared to 87 or 88 for Tahair from the committee.
Any questions for Chris?
I feel like I need to say something. I don't know if I have specific questions for Chris. I just wanted to air my concerns, I guess. You know, I don't mind Chartwells. I think they're fine. I think we've had from what I understand, a long-standing relationship with them. It's been a while.
We've been with Tahair probably about 10 years. With Chartwells for about 10 years, I think. We were probably with Tahair. We were with Tahair before that.
Is that right? And, you know, the relationship seems to be working out well. I don't necessarily have any complaints about them or their service. I feel like they've been very responsive when we've asked for things. I think particularly they helped us work through the styrofoam plates in the middle school, and that was very gracious that they helped, you know, so they've been responsive. I guess my concerns with continuing with Chartwells is, so it's not necessarily continuing with Chartwells. I would really like us as a district to explore what we're really offering. And so if Chartwells, I think, is interested in having a conversation about the offerings, to me, that's really important. I am a parent of young children. I have a child at the elementary school. I see the menu, and I've seen the offerings, and it's a month's worth of what we call Friday food in our house, right? When we go out and get like stuff you wouldn't necessarily eat on a daily basis. And so I would just like to explore if there are different ways to provide a nutritious, I'm not saying it's not nutritious, but a different way to provide a nutritious lunch to our students. And I'm hoping, given how strong and lasting the relationship has been, that we can find some middle ground. So.
And they are very interested in doing that. They have suggested putting a committee together, I think a couple different ones, one just of students and then one of parents and staff and maybe board members to talk about a vision plan for how they offer the program, of course, within the federal guidelines. And so they're very, very willing to do that. We're meeting tomorrow to start the process, because what will happen now is we'll negotiate the final contract and bring that for approval at the next meeting. I would actually suggest maybe we bring Chartwell's in as a discussion item for the next meeting and have them talk about some of the things they've done in other districts and and their plans for that. Just as a note, I do have a proposal from Jackie, the food service director. We are going to all trays and all silverware next year. So
that's awesome.
she met with, she does do surveys of the students, and she's been meeting with different student groups, and she met with the group out at the high school, and they really want to go away from any of the paper products. So we're going to try it, and we'll see what our shrinkage is. But at this point, it doesn't look cost prohibitive as long as it's not all the silverware isn't ending up in the trash bin. So, but they are very responsive, and when I had talked to them about putting some committees together, they were very responsive to that.
Thank you, Chris, I appreciate that.
I'd just like to echo that. Hearing that they, I really looked closely at this when we got our agenda, and was concerned about it. And the only reason that I'm going to go ahead and vote for it is because it's only 1 year. And hearing that the Chartwells is really honest with sitting down with us, look at different options for food. I have to admit, all three of my children have eaten the school food, but my son, he's going to be a junior next year. He's like, Dad, it's getting a little old. He pretty much eats the same thing every day because of not very many options, and the variety and a lot of the processed foods that, again, we all try to avoid at home, but we seem to accept it at our schools. So I'm really looking forward to be one of the first to raise my hand and say I'd love to serve on that committee and look at some of the options. Okay, that's great. But also, I've also heard from high school students at the high school that said, they want to expand their garden. They already do garden things, but they talk about knowing about food services, whether they're at hospitals or other institutions where they've got gardens on their roofs, and it provides part of the greens and other items for the actual meals that they eat at those institutions. So the high school students are thinking about it, so I'd like to join with them and follow their lead in these endeavors.
And one of the main students, I'm not going to remember his name right now, who's leading the garden, but he's graduating, is on my nutrition, Lucas, I thought it was Lucas, on my nutrition wellness committee, and he's brought that forward, and we've talked about using some of their products. They probably aren't going to generate enough to feed the entire high school, but we could have it as a taste station so that kids that maybe don't taste kohlrabi or something like that. So we've already been engaging with them on that.
Thanks.
Thank you for pointing out that they're willing to talk about different menu options, because, I'm going to kind of echo, my kids take home lunch because they really don't want to eat the food there. So to offer more healthy options that are more like what they eat at home, I think they're more likely to eat food at school. So thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I just had one comment that might help, I guess, as we move forward. Appreciate the dialogue. As for reference, 480,000 meals were provided last year in a year at an average cost of $155. And so I'll be curious to know what other school districts are incurring in costs to say, hey, are we undercutting everyone else? Are everyone else paying $3 a meal for kids, just to provide some comparability? Because maybe we should provide some more funding for either healthier choices or whatnot, but having comparisons to other districts would be helpful too.
So I just want to add on to that, just to say that, because there was some discussion about this, and part of what I thought, because the reason I think it should come to the board, either as a work session or in another venue, was I don't know if we as a board have had a conversation about what we're willing to pay for, right? And what we're really paying for. And so I think that certainly, I would only imagine healthier options are going to cost more, right? Or different options, but, as a board or as a district, is that something we're willing to pay for? And I think that's a really important conversation for us all to have.
Interesting you said that. Actually, you and I talked about this last week. I bumped into a young man who was involved after college with a really innovative program in New York. A chef that had been training in Europe left his restaurant business and started the business of providing school lunches. His business model was to draw chefs out of those restaurants, offer them a more normal, work schedule, as opposed to restaurants where they're working, late at night. It's hard for a family. And he was able to do that. So he brought these chefs into schools, and actually, Luke, you mentioned costs. They were actually able to provide, fresh-made food, not the processed stuff, for as the same amount or less by just using, different techniques. And of course, that's a decision you have to make. Now, I will share, I promise you, I'll forward you the article that the young man sent to me about it. And of course, unfortunately, the business hasn't exploded across the rest of the country. They're still out on the East Coast, but it's the type of thing that I think we could, be part of the discussion.
All right, it's been moved by Perez and seconded by Deerdorf. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 12, set the public hearing for the sale of Old Edwards to the City of Ames.
I move the board shall set a public hearing on the conveyance of the above described property for June 17, 2019 at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom at the district offices at 2005 24th Street, Ames, Iowa, and the secretary is authorized and directed to prepare, publish, and distribute the notice of hearing.
Second?
Moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benken. Discussion.
I just want to thank, it's been almost 2.5, 3 years now since I started the conversations with that neighborhood. And just so everyone is still aware, they went around their neighbors and actually generated money to help us offset some of the cost of demolition. So even though we're going to be conveying to the city for $1, please understand that that neighborhood and other people in the community stepped up to help us with the demolition costs. So much appreciated.
And even though he's gone, did Jerry slip out? Okay, he's out there. I wanted to thank him for his diligent work also with getting it
Clean and green.
clean and green with the adjacent property owners and everything else so that we were ready to move forward with this. So he deserves that public recognition for that.
Absolutely. I drove by it today, and families were there, and cars were parked in the old parking lot from Edwards with kids playing on the playground equipment. So great to see, and a great opportunity for that part of the community.
Yep.
All right, we will go, it's been moved by Beerbaum, seconded by Benken, and this is a vote on roll call.
Deerdorf, aye.
Perez, aye.
Benken, aye.
Beerbaum, aye.
Franzen, aye.
Colton, aye.
Rosser, aye.
Passes 7-0. Item 13, master contract between Public Professional and Maintenance Employees, Local 2003, International Union of Painters and Allied Trades and Board of Education, July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020.
I move the board approve the 2019-20 master contract with PPME Local 2003, IUPAT with the Ames Education Association.
Second.
Moved by Rosser, seconded by Perez. Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Item 14, compensation for educational assistants.
I move the board approve the 2019-2020 compensation package for educational assistants.
Second.
Moved by Benkin, seconded by Perez. Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Items from the board. Well, I will highlight quick that we were all out at 5:30 to celebrate the groundbreaking for the high school. And it really is a celebration, and what I said there, I was reminded by a former board member that was, we had a timeline that stretched 8 years with some facility improvements, and the very last marker on it was the groundbreaking for the high school. So we have now completed that 8-year timeline, but it certainly has been a huge project, Jerry, that I know we're not even started, right? That dirt just looks really good with those shovels moving it, but certainly what a celebration for our community, the overwhelming support a year ago for the bond referendum to go ahead and pursue this project, and a celebration of those that have helped us to get to the point of the bond referendum, and then those who have helped us from that point to now. So you will start to see dirt and mud moving, and more and more coming in the next couple of years. So great celebration.
And fences coming down and fences going up.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to point out, I was speaking to an older gentleman in the community who has no children that will be going to our public schools. But he was so excited today to see those fences going down. And he made the point of it to me, and he was proud. He was very proud that our community, and again, I want to thank the community for supporting us in this effort and where we've gotten to today. Also want to thank, school year's over. Thank all the teachers, and the students are all excited, yes. It's been a good year, but again, I know the staff has a few more days. I shouldn't say they're done. I know, well, I'll get in trouble there. But thank you for everything you've done with our kids this past year. It's been very meaningful, not only for our children that are sitting up here, but all the students that you serve in our school district. We very sincerely appreciate your hard work.
Items from the superintendent?
Well, that just absolutely goes right into what I was going to talk about. Our teachers, although students are out, our teachers are very, very busy right now. And so I just wanted the board to be aware of what's going on the next few days. Today we had a phenomenal reading training on our new reading adoption, the Lucy Calkins. One of the things I was really excited about was one of the presenters, their school in Ohio uses both the Lucy Calkins and the foundations. And she's actually someone that is one of our main trainers, so we were really, really excited about her look at how we make that happen. And then we also have mental health first aid going on. All of our teachers will get the mental health first aid by the first of the year. We will have every teacher having that training. Standards work in fine arts today. I know some work went on with that, and I appreciate our directors that stepped up to help lead that. And then the EAs and support staff were in some training today, I believe, Darcy? Is it today?
The EAs had CPI training today.
And so we then also continue tomorrow with our PBIS work and some building level training. So the teachers didn't shut down when the kids left, and I'm excited about the quality of training that we have going on. And then I'm going to just quickly review our org chart. But while we're doing that, I wanted to introduce Chad Dumas. Chad is here with us. He comes from Hastings, Nebraska, and he will be our Executive Director of Elementary Education. One of the things that I just thought was so amazing today, we had both Chad and our new secondary director at our literacy training, and it was just really phenomenal to see how that alignment is going to happen across the district. And so all of our elementary programs will operate under Chad's leadership, and so we are excited to have him here. They are house hunting, so Chad's wife is also here. So thank you both so much for being here. And then this is just, oh, that's not a super.
It's better on the TV.
Gotcha. It's okay.
It's better on the
So this is a look at our reorganization at the district level. And so all of our directors continue to report to me, but in addition to that, I'll also have these two executive directors. And like I said, the alignment will be phenomenal, so we're able to really get that alignment. One of the new positions that I carved out was the director of, and if you see Director of Human Resources, as you know, Lisa has accepted a position with a different district, so we will have an opening for Director of Human Resources. And then the other position that is new to this organizational chart is the Director of Equity. And so Anthony Dr. Jones, I should say, is going to step into that position, and his work has already begun. So we have been kind of really mapping out some things that we're going to look at doing, and we'll deep dive into that this summer as we have more time. But I'm really excited that he'll be in that role next year and helping lead the work with Katie and Daniel, and looking at some of those barriers that exist and how we eliminate those for students. That, I'm looking, double checking, that's it.
Okay. How about our board planning calendar? Anything that you want to highlight?
Yes,
on that?
I'd like to highlight, we have our next board meeting, June 17th. Prior to the board meeting, we will have a work session at 5 p.m. And that work session will be with OPN and Story. And they'll be kind of giving you an update on where we're at right now, how the bidding process works, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions to them at that time.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'll entertain a motion.
I move we adjourn.
Second?
Moved by Perez, seconded by Beerbaum. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Passes 7-0. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.